Welcome to Mana's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 16, The Half-Elf Godkin. If he was suspected of being a total fraud from that small tear in his disguise, then his activities in this village wouldn't bear any fruit. No, that's not quite correct. My master also practices alchemy. It was nothing more than a little bit of the knowledge they had taught me. This was accordingly in character for Ainz to aim for the last possible moment, to avoid having his lies seen through, and so that no contradictions would arise from what he had said earlier. So that's it. Ainz immediately sensed that the chief pharmacist had lost interest in him. This couldn't be helped. You could also say it was exactly as he had imagined. It was for this reason that he had prepared one more trump card to draw his interest. Ainz came closer to the chief pharmacist until he was standing next to him, who was once again facing his desk. Ainz placed his trump card among the things on top of the desk. This is a potion that contains a healing power that was brought from a certain place. That potion in the glass bottle, which was made in Irantal and didn't have a speck of refinement to it, was one of the potions the Bear family made in the process of creating the red healing potion. The red potion was already completed right now. They're focusing their energy on developing a version that used cheap alchemical solutions or herbs so contrary to expectations. This potion was rare nowadays. This is purple. The chief pharmacist picked up the bottle. The container isn't colored. The reason it isn't blue, something is mixed into it. The chief pharmacist raised the bottle up and shook it while looking at the bottom. There's a small, really only a slight deposit on the bottom, yes. He was muttering to himself. May I? Go right ahead. The moment Ainz granted his permission, the chief pharmacist opened the lid of the bottle and without any hesitation, lightly cut his hand with a knife. He then splashed the potion onto that small cut. It was a fairly good amount. He had used about half the bottle. The cut closed. You couldn't say that it was instantaneous at a visible speed. That's fast. I couldn't even calculate the time it took. The medicinal herbs and magical reagents used to make it are in this deposit. He sure talks to himself a lot, or rather, that knife, wasn't it the one he was using to chop something up until just a moment ago? And on top of that, he was able to use it in that way. Wasn't the effect not supposed to activate if you didn't use the whole thing, regardless of the wound? No, that was probably because in an extreme situation, like in the middle of combat, you wouldn't be able to consider things like wound depth to calculate the amount to use, would you? The chief pharmacist licked off all the potion that covered his hand, and then smelled it. I smell a zen. He seemed to notice that it was something else faster than Ainz could slip in a retort. Is it not it? Is it the smell of my own hand? Odorless and tasteless, for concealing. Concealing what? No. The chief pharmacist spun his head around and fixed his gaze on Ainz. Are all the healing medicines of the city this color? That is incorrect. I hear it was spread there via the undead king who rules over Irantal. I do not know all of the details of how it came to be, but, well, it is valuable. In fact, the color of the common healing potion in circulation is blue. The chief pharmacist heaved a heavy sigh. An undead king. No, that's not the problem, I guess, though I also have a feeling that it is a problem. Well, it's fine. So, you wouldn't mind if I kept this? The chief pharmacist pointed at the bottle with about half of its contents left. Depending on the conditions. Upon confirming that the chief pharmacist was waiting for what came next, Ainz continued, the price is information. If it's you who has served the role of a pharmacist in this sea of trees, I believe you hold knowledge that can only be found here. I believe things would be balanced if it were to be in exchange for that information, but what say you? After silence had reigned over them for a little while, the chief pharmacist opened his mouth. For what sort of purpose do you want to use that knowledge? If Ainz recalled the attitude of the chief pharmacist from just a little while ago, he would have a rough idea about the answer he would be pleased with. Those were probably the words, to aim for the top as a pharmacist. I want to be an even greater pharmacist than I am now, etc. However, Ainz could not say that. It is not that I have any particular purpose in mind. So long as I can get a hold of that information, I might be able to use it in some business in the future, and my thirst for knowledge will be satisfied. Just as Ainz had predicted, the chief pharmacist looked a little angry. That's what you wanted for. As I said just a moment ago, I am an arcane-type magic caster. I pride myself on those abilities being extremely high, but my skills as an alchemist are non-existent, and my master told me that I had no talent in that field. Therefore, I do not have the least bit of intention to live as a pharmacist. However, information is another matter. Information is power and a weapon. Those who have it and those who do not are completely different. Lastly, the debt of gratitude I would owe would be larger. Debt of gratitude. Yes. Since I have no intention to become a pharmacist, you should be reluctant to teach me your secrets, am I right? Without waiting for the chief pharmacist's reply, Ainz continued. If that is the case, then the only question that remains is, can you offer me information that is equal in value to the unknown healing potion, an extremely rare thing, in exchange? Thus, the difference in this trade would become a debt of gratitude. You might end up accepting information about trivial mixes or plants, you know. And then I might declare that I haven't taken on any debt. Or, can I assert that the price I paid was higher, and that you are the one who will be in debt to me? Even so, I don't mind, you know. The chief pharmacist made a face that said, "What? There are 2 demerits you receive by doing that. One is that you cannot lie to yourself. The feeling of guilt you'd get from exchanging some useless information for something really valuable would stay with you, would it not? 2. And one more. You would be appraised as a brazen and unscrupulous person. Should there be a next time, our past association would be taken into account. And, if I were to talk about this in the city, how would the others, the pharmacists whose knowledge is greater than my own, feel about it? How would they think of you? I see. The knowledge of the savages of the frontier would be evaluated as only of that level, and the dark elves who live in this forest, and their pharmacists, too, will be the targets of derision. Huh. Would I be evaluated as a pharmacist who can't even discern the value of the medicine that was handed to them? Would I be considered a pharmacist who doesn't have knowledge that could balance out the trade? Or would I be judged to be a greedy pharmacist who can't conduct business fairly? Though you might also be praised for buying an expensive item for a lower price. Is that how pharmacists in the city think? They try not to pay the proper price for the things they are offered. Many kinds of people live in the city after all. I cannot say for certain that there are no people who are obsessed with the short-term benefits and do not have foresight. Well, those sorts of people will soon disappear thereafter, because a second chance will not come their way ever again. On the contrary, it is those merchants who look after first-time customers who will be given a chance of success. As the saying goes, you must lose the fly to catch the trout. Ha ha ha. The chief pharmacist laughed in amusement. It was the first time he had smiled since Ainz got there. You really are a smooth talker, aren't you? You sure run your mouth a lot. Ainz breathed a small sigh of relief. He had thought the chief pharmacist would be a much more emotional dark elf. To put it bluntly, for a very average salesman, customers who put their emotions out in the open presented many problems. Personality-wise, the kind of people who prioritize their own feelings over the merits and demerits of an action, even after they were explained to them, were quite troublesome. Ainz remembered hearing that in most cases, those were the sort of people who would decide on the specifications one day and come back to say to change them the next day. It seems that there was an opinion that if one were to be a first-rate salesman, that kind of customer would be a piece of cake to handle once they got their foot in the door. But for Ainz, from the perspective of an average salesman like Suzuki Satoru, they weren't someone he would want to do business with. That is the first time I have been told that. He really had never been told that. Isn't it just that everybody thought of you that way and just didn't say it out loud? Unlike a moment ago, the chief pharmacist seemed to be in a good mood. Is that right? Though I myself do not believe so. Ha. Now then, when it comes to the knowledge that will balance out the value of this potion, there's nothing I can offer except the secret medicines I know. How long were you planning on staying in this village? It is not as if I have definitely decided, but I intend to leave this village in a few days. Perhaps around 7 days at the longest. The chief pharmacist's mouth twisted into a grin. I see. In that case. A few moments passed as he remained silent, just as he was. Ainz didn't say anything. For the time being, if we only have that short a time, then it would be impossible to drill my secret medicines into you. For medicines that are considered secret, you must grasp the minute changes in the necessary ingredients in each season, recognize them by scent and touch, and, finally, you have to carefully alter the amounts you use. Putting it bluntly, I want you to stay here for half a year, so I can beat those changes into all 5 of your senses. Ainz wanted to say, you just have to write them out on a sheet of paper, but if he did, the chief pharmacist might be displeased, so he didn't say anything. Therefore, you don't mind if it's not the secret medicines, though I don't know if they'll balance the scales out from the perspective of value, but instead, medicines that are thought of as rare. You don't mind if I taught you the processes to mix them, their prescription, and other knowledge about them. No, that will not be a problem. I shall leave it up to you. Alright then, starting today, let's have you stay here and I'll teach you. Since we don't really have much time, I'm gonna beat it firmly into that body of yours. What? That's a problem. That is absolutely a problem. He wanted to decrease the danger of his illusion being found out by even a little bit. On top of that, his body didn't need to eat, sleep, or even use the toilet. No matter how well he acted, it was certain he would be thought of as abnormal, and he would be found out. My apologies, but my niece and nephew are here with me, so I must decline that request. I do not mind if you reduce the number of medicines you teach me. So would you be willing to compromise? Because I am going to record it properly. Oral transmission only. I won't allow a single record of him. That is a. Ainz hemmed and hawed. He didn't have the confidence that he could memorize everything, even with instruction. Certainly, for Yggdrasil, the game he poured everything he had into. Remembering the vast amount of information that was in it wasn't the least bit difficult. However, if you asked him if he could remember information that he had no interest in like in this situation, he would have to shake his head in the negative. In general, if one were to look at it from a boss's perspective, would you not worry if you had subordinates who only listened to what you said and didn't take any notes?